Here's Eddie Howe on Alexander Isak. This is the latest. You have to earn the right to train with us. We are Newcastle United. The player has a responsibility here to be part of a team and part of a squad, and you have to act the right way, so that is also at play here. No player can expect to act poorly and train with the group as normal.
He has got a point.
ESPN FC is presented by Xfinity. The Wi-Fi is booming. Let's welcome Aage Fjortoft.
I thought you were going to go to Jan about the training poorly.
Well, that would have been a nice segue, wouldn't it?
I always train hard.
It would have been a very nice segue.
Particularly when he's had a night out in Barnsley.
I was actually going to go to Shaka, because it sounds to me like Eddie Howe doesn't really care to have Alexander Isak training with his team. Here's Shaq.
No, I think absolutely he cares to have Isak training with his team, but kind of given Isak's behaviour and missing training, he has to, at the very least, for the rest of the dressing room, make the point that no one player is bigger than the club. And Alexander Isak, for as good as he's been over the last 3 years that he's been there, is not, I don't think you just walk away from training and stay away in some matter of protest and then stroll back in and expect everybody to act as though nothing has happened. And I think Eddie Howe is absolutely right to call Alexander Isak out and on this, in this way. And for me, I thought Isak, as much as I love Alexander Isak, I do not condone what he did. And I think professionally, it's kind of shooting yourself in your foot. You know where Newcastle are in that if a bid big enough comes in and they're able to secure a replacement, you can go. Alexander Isak's got nothing to do with that. You've got 3 years left in a contract. What, you're going to stay away for 3 years? I don't understand some of his behaviours in that regard. I just feel he's been badly advised.
It seems though, Shaq, this is the kind of go-to mantra of some of the bigger players these days, that not even the bigger players, even the average players, who don't get what they want or don't get the move that they want at the time that they want. And I can empathise. We all had bad times at clubs and we all had transfers, and some dragged out longer than others. But I agree with Shaq, I think the advice some of these players are getting, and the fact that they are, it seems on the face of it, taking this advice, is, I think, ill-advised. And I understand he wants this move to happen, right? I get that. You know, who wouldn't? Newcastle are a great club, but Liverpool are just a bigger, better, more successful club. And he wants to further his career. But this move might not happen. And this is the problem when you take this stance. That if this move does not happen and ownership dig their heels in, then ultimately you have to walk back into that dressing room, right?
But yeah.
And then you have to walk back out onto that field. And they're a passionate bunch, as Shaq will tell you. And he could go, if he doesn't make this move to Liverpool, and it looks like he probably will, but there's a chance it doesn't happen, he has to pull that Newcastle jersey on again and walk out in front of 60,000 at St James's Park. And he's gone from hero to zero, not by the fact that he was going to entertain the Liverpool move, but the fact that the way that he tried to go about it. And that...
Yeah.
That is sometimes putting yourself in a very, very difficult position if this move doesn't come off. Because if it doesn't come off, he's going to get a lot of stick from a lot of people on a weekly basis. And that's not good for club, it's not good for him, and it certainly is not going to be good for Eddie Howe.
Jan?
And the only one that's good for is maybe an agent. It's the people in and around him, because Alexander Isak got to walk into that Newcastle dressing room at some point. What is great about football, and the thing we miss, every footballer, is to be in a dressing room, because you don't care nationality, religion, color of your skin, where are you from, how much you earn. In the dressing room, you're equal. So when Shaka is saying, I don't understand what he's doing, but we maybe understand what an agent is doing, because an agent doesn't have to go into a dressing room. I don't know the agent of Alexander Isak. I speak in general. The only thing at the top of my head is what Dortmund had a problem with that culture some years ago when Aubameyang was going to strike. Dembélé was going to a strike to get his move away from Dortmund. So I think of I work a lot with strategy. I think a lot of strategy, and I think of sometimes, wouldn't it be better for Alexander Isak? Wouldn't it be more likely that he would get a move if he was 100% there, worked hard, went to the preseason camp, did what he had to do, and then people will never understand how he will switch club A for B anyway. That is another thing. But the emotional thing that is going on now, when you kind of tell people that I'm too good for you, I don't want to be around. And I mean, there is a lot of proud fans around the world. There are a lot of proud fan base, but you have to understand Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle is as passionate you can have. And he think that this is the right move to get a move. Eddie Howe is like a JFK, like a Barack Obama when he's statesman. He kind of gets a goal and it's an open goal for him to say these kind of things because everybody is speaking to his choir. They will love him for this. And Alexander Isak, well, we know if he comes back and scored 3 goals in the first game, they will forgive him. But there is a lot of ifs here. To sort this out for Alexander Isak. I think he's bad advised, and I think he's used a totally wrong strategy.
On a more worrying note for Eddie Howe, it's getting very close to the season starting, 10 days or so. Transfer window's not too far away. If this thing goes the distance and they're hedging their bets, Callum Wilson's not there now. He was sort of secondary to Alexander Isak, but it was another body who did a decent job for them. Is where do they go? They're in the Champions League. They want to have a very strong season again in the Premier League, which they did not the year that they were in the Champions League 2 years ago. So that really affected them. And it affected them in a sense because the squad wasn't big enough. And here we're talking about losing a member and potentially not replacing, particularly if Sesko goes to Manchester United. So it's leaving Eddie Howe, I think, in a very difficult position. And it's almost in a sense where, you know, as a club, and I don't say this lightly, but it's almost give his player what he wants. Because if he really wants to go, just let him go. At least we can clean the mess up and then try and move forward because we know he's not there. At the moment, they don't know whether he's in, whether he's out, and whether they need to bring somebody else through the door. And you ask any manager, they would have wanted all of this done at the beginning of July. The very place where, you know, Liverpool and Arsenal and 1 or 2 clubs did some early business, that's when Eddie Howe would have wanted this done. Not going into August and not 10 days before the start of the season.
To that point, I think Eddie Howe has been blindsided by this. And that also does not help Isak's position.
No, absolutely not. And I'm sure.
What do you mean from the player?
Yes.
Saying, like, I'm not, you know, don't worry about it.
I think, to your point, if June 1st, for argument's sake, they knew that Isak wanted to go and that the interest from Liverpool was there and real, they could have started to make inquiries at the very least at that point. But then all of a sudden, things just escalated 2 weeks ago or thereabouts. Isak stormed off and stayed home. And as a result, Newcastle are now trying to find a striker to fill a void after having agreed to let Callum Wilson go, etc. I just feel the club have been blindsided. And that hasn't helped their position, hasn't helped their attitude towards Isak. It's made everything just so much worse.
And I would just say, if I may, Kay, there is only losers in a process like this, because if you come to end of the transfer window, you don't have a replacement, and maybe you have to say, Isak, you got to stay. I mean, we can say, remember when Cristiano Ronaldo wanted to go to Real Madrid, Manchester United said to him, you can stay for another year, we'll let you go next summer. I mean, you will always look for solutions, but you can't let the club down. Because if he takes him back, that is the credibility of a leader, Eddie Howe. If you just freeze him out, then you will struggle as a team. You will lose football games. You go into the Champions League. You maybe end up with taking a striker on loan. I mean, I remember back in the days when Arsenal never got one. At the end, the last 2 days, Arsene Wenger found some striker, often a Swede, by the way, in that position to just fill in. And so there's only losers in this process, and the biggest losers are the Newcastle fans, because you can never explain to them why any player can leave, but at least you can't let a player who nearly threatening to strike to leave the club, because that will make a bad culture at the club.
Yeah, no doubt we will continue talking about this whole saga on tomorrow's ESPN FC.
Not for as long though.
No, don't forget.